Hey everyone, Jessica Riffle Edwards in Wilmington, North Carolina. I want to talk about a real estate contract. In the state of North Carolina, realtors, we only fill in the blanks. We're not attorneys. They don't trust us enough to draft up any wording. All we can do is fill in the blanks. However, that real estate contract to purchase a house is a legal binding contract. Legal binding. This means, if you're a buyer or a seller, you can't just walk away from a contract. It doesn't mean that if you're a buyer and you have earnest money on the table, you just lose your earnest money. I have a situation right now where my seller has been under contract for 2 months, 2 whole months. The buyer had the inspections done. My seller did over $1,000 of repairs on the property, and the day of closing, I get an email. Everything's smooth sailing. We've been in communication with the lender, the buyer's agent. Everything's great. We're closing. We get an email from the buyer's agent on the day of closing that says her buyer will be terminating the contract. It sent us a termination, and I basically said, whoa, brakes on this situation. You can't just terminate a contract. I think there was a lot of different factors in this. I think the agent did not educate the buyer enough. I think the buyer, obviously wasn't educated on the process, the situation that you have got to figure out your finances, figure your stuff out, for lack of better words. Be an adult. You're purchasing a home. Figure it out. Once you're 2 months, you're under contract for 2 months, that's plenty of time to get it all figured out. You can't just walk away on the day of closing. And to the agent, you can't just send another agent a termination letter on the day of closing. Needless to say, I basically told them that wasn't going to fly. And unfortunately, my seller had moved her tenant out, like I said, spent the money on the repairs, done all these things. And, what about the seller? What about them in that situation? The seller can sue. And the seller would have sued the buyer. And the seller was going to sue the buyer and had already spoken to an attorney as soon as she found out about this, because obviously that puts them in a terrible, terrible situation. So, needless to say, the buyer didn't know that she could be sued for walking away from a contract and has since decided to move forward to closing. And hopefully we still will close. But, you've got to realize that you are entering into a legal contract. It's not just I want to buy a house, but I might change my mind through the process. No, you need to know before you enter into that contract. It's legal, it's binding, and you can be sued by the other party if you don't follow through. Now, of course, if you can't get your loan or something happened with the inspection, you're protected. Buyer and seller are protected in those situations. So, obviously, if you can't get financing, that's, or the house is falling into the ground, doesn't pass inspection, that's a totally different situation. But just keep in mind that when you go to buy a house, it is a contract. If you have any questions or comments or you disagree, please feel free to email me at jessicaedwards@seacoastrealty.com. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.